Alright, welcome to Mom's biography as told by Ma, Mary Jo Corey. Hi, Ma.
Hi, Kevin.
What year were you born?
December 12th, 1938.
And what did your parents, if anything, tell you about the day you were born?
They were just happy to have a little girl.
And where were you born?
In Freeburn, Kentucky. In Barn Holler, Freeburn, Kentucky.
Barn Holler. Sounds like a country song. Why were you given your first, middle, and last name that you have?
I was named after my grandma, who was Mary Ann, and my Uncle Joe.
Oh, I never knew that.
So I got Mary Jo.
Nice.
That's why I go by Mary Jo. They didn't call me Mary because my granny was Mary.
Oh, Granny's name was Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I never knew that either. What's your first, most vivid memory that you can remember when you were a kid?
I think it was, I lived on a farm, and we lived in a little company-owned house. The coal company owned the houses, and they had a general store, and they owned everything. So my grandpa and all my uncles worked in the coal mine. So we got to live in one of their houses. And so I lived in one of those houses with my granny and my brother. And my mother had to go and get a job someplace else because all they had were, that she could do was work in for the miners and clean up in where they used to live while they worked in the mines. And so she went to Richmond, Virginia and got a job up there, and so she would come and see us on her vacation when she got off from work. But it was a little 3-room house. It was, I had a fireplace and 2 bedrooms, and then there was the kitchen, and we had a porch, and we had an outhouse. We had no running water. And I had to go up on the hill and draw the water out of a well, put it in a bucket, and bring it down to the house. And we had an ice box. They called it an ice box because we put the ice in the, in the refrigerator.
The whole block.
The whole block of ice in the refrigerator.
Pick up your phone! The phone!
So, I used to have to go up there and get the water and bring it down for my granny. And I used to have to go get the cow.
You brought the cow down?
I brought the cow. I went up in the mountains, and it was in the Appalachian Mountains. And I brought the cow down, and my brother would milk it because the cow didn't like me because I didn't like her. And so she wouldn't give me milk. And so my brother had to milk her. And when she was calving, we couldn't use the milk. We would have to milk her and then throw the milk away because she couldn't use the milk. It was no good. But she still didn't like me. My granny said, you have to milk her when give your brother a break. And you milk her when she's not. We don't use the milk. She wouldn't do it then. So I still had to go to the woods to get her. And I always ran into rattlesnakes and everything, and I couldn't run too fast, so they told us not to run, but I would run, and I never got bit, thank God. But that was the one thing I didn't like to do.
And why couldn't you run?
Because I have polio. So I had one leg shorter than the other, and I walked on my toes. That was before I had the operation. So when I got polio when I was 9 months old. So before that, I was starting to walk even, and but then when I got polio, it was called infantile paralysis. So I I was paralyzed from the neck down. So my mom used to take me all over town in a little red wagon. And she took me to lunch with her one day at the restaurant. And the jukebox was playing. And her friend said, "Myrtle, look down at Mary Jo. Her hands and her toes are keeping time to the music." So, therefore, I wasn't paralyzed anymore. So I can imagine how my mom felt when she saw that, knowing she wasn't going to have a kid that was paralyzed the rest of her life. So after that, I used to hang on to the dog. We had an old dog, old Shep, he was called. And he protected me like everything. And I would hold on to his fur on his back, and he'd let me walk. And that's how I learned to walk.
Nice.
I didn't walk too good, but I walked.
Nothing like a good old dog named Shep.
Yeah, old Shep. That was his name. And I guess that was the first thing I ever remember was that. But anyways, we survived the polio, and then I guess that's it. What's the next question?
Where was Mom born? Nana.
Nana was born in Freeburn also.
And your dad?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm assuming he was from the same town. They were both born there. I don't know.
And was Mom strict?
No, Mom wasn't with me. My granny was strict. I had to live with my granny because Mom worked elsewhere. She worked up in the city where she could get work. And so she used to send us money home, you know.
So Nana moved up north?
Yeah, she went to Richmond, Virginia, and she worked up there.
And then how often would she come back and forth?
She would come back when she got her vacation. So every summer she came back.
So it's just you, Granny with you and Uncle Bucky?
Just me and Uncle Bucky and Granny. And then when I was in 6th grade, my aunt in Virginia got sick. And she came and got me to come and help her. And I went to live with her. That was in 1940, I guess. 48 or 49. And I lived with her for about a year, and my uncle got laid off in the mines, and she moved to Michigan, and she took me with her, with my uncle and his boys. And that summer, my uncle's niece got out of college and was on, you know, for the summer, and she came up to live with us. So she took me to the beach. But we decided on the way home one day, I was 15 then. And when we were on our way home, she said, "Mary Jo, they're looking for car hops. I think we should go get a job." And I said, "I don't think so. I'm only 15. She said, "They don't know that. Just follow me. I'll take care of you." You know, we went in, we applied for the job. She told them I was 18. And so they hired us. And she gave me a phony Social Security number and my name and wrote it down and everything. And the guy left us by ourselves to take care of the place. And so she said, "You wait on the cars outside and I'll do the cooking." And I said, "Okay." So went to I went there, the guy rolled his window down and I asked him what he wanted and I wrote it down and I went in and they gave her the thing and she put the stuff on the tray and I go back out. And I never put one on, so when I went to put it on, I dumped it in the guy's lap. So I went back and I said, "We got a problem." She said, "What?" I said, "The guy's wearing his thing, so I don't think he likes it that well, so you have to make him another one." So So she said, you come in and cook and I'll go out and do that. And I said, okay. So I went in and cooked and she made the stuff. So she did the car up.
And what happened when Granny found out?
Well, Granny didn't know. I wrote my mom a letter. And she called my aunt and she said, you get her ready, I'm coming after her. She's not working in no place. And she said, she's not working anywhere, she's going to the beach. My mother said, just get her things ready, I'm bringing her home. So Nana came down and got me.
So Granny didn't read, right?
No, Granny couldn't read or write. And so once I learned how to write and read at school, I used to, she would cash her check, her pension check, and she'd bring it back for me to count. And I like to go to the basketball games, so I used to, I'd count her money, and Nana used to send me money to buy a lunch ticket for me and Uncle Bucky. And so I would buy Uncle Bucky's lunch ticket, and I would keep my money, and I would work in the cafeteria cleaning the tables. And they would give me lunch for free. So.
And how much was lunch?
It was $1 something.
Really? That's expensive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was. And so it was for the month, though.
Oh, $1 a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyways, I would keep my money and I would save it for when I went to the basketball games. And so Granny would say, you got to count my checks. I'd count it, and I'd say, yeah, it's all there, Grandma. And she would say, okay, and that would be it. Now, the time came to go to the basketball game, and Brother wanted to go. So Grandma would give him money to go. So I said, well, Grandma, could you give me, and the nickel I kept was just to buy popcorn and soda, because I had enough for the tickets. So she said, you already have your money, young lady. So I never pulled any wool over her eyes. She knew what I was doing, and from that time forward, I never took another nickel.
So it was a nickel for a popcorn and
yeah, for the whole month.
Soda?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you have a vivid memory of something you did that you got caught and disciplined for?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I always used my legs. My polio was a way not to work in the garden. I hated working in the garden. I was not a country girl. I wanted to be in the city, so I didn't like to do that. So my grandma made me go hoe the corn, and so she'd be hoeing the corn, and she'd say, you're not hoeing the corn. And I was like, Ronnie. And Mama, my leg hurt so bad. Okay, she said, well, you go on home, but you're not going to go home and sit around. You're going to clean the house and make sure you have dinner on the table when we come. And so I would go clean the house, and I'd make the dinner and the lunch and be ready when she came. And so then the lady next door, the rich lady, she used to hire me, pay me $5 to hoe corn for her. So I would hoe corn for her, and she'd give me the $5. And I wasn't supposed to use, what do you call it? Shoes. I had to wear those brown shoes that you tie up. I couldn't wear sandals. But I wanted to be like all the other girls. So I made the $5, and I was going to go to DeLorme to buy me over in West Virginia where they had the store. I was going to walk down there and get my sandals so I could be pretty like the rest of the girls. So I said, my grandma was up in the field hoeing corn, and I said, Mama, I'm going to DeLorme. I'll be back in a little while. I'm going to get me some sandals. And she said, you're not going no place, young lady. She said, I said, yeah, I'll see you later. And I waved, and she said, you step your foot out of this yard and I'll knock you down, so help me God. And I said, bye, Granny, I'll see you later. And she picked up a clog of dirt and knocked me down. I didn't go. But I went the next day, but I didn't tell her I was going.
Now this is Granny that used to bring the shotgun out when people
Oh,
came
yeah.
out, right?
Oh yeah,
On the
one
porch?
time when my brother was a wimp, so I used to fight his battles, and he always played marbles, and he'd win everybody's marbles, and so they would take them away from him, and he would give them back to him. Then he'd come and say, "Joe, they took all my marbles," and I said, "Well, what did you let them take them for?" So I would go and I'd beat the kid up and I'd take him back, give him his marbles. And then this one day, there was this rich lady in town, and she had a little boy. She only had one boy, but he had every toy in the world. And he had an archery set. And I'm walking up the road, and I see all the kids lined up against the pig pen, and he's got the bow and arrow, and he's going to shoot them. So I ran up there, and I got him, and I grabbed the bow and arrow, and I broke it in half, and I took all of his arrows, and I broke them over my knee, and I said, "Take your things and go home." And he did, and his mother came to tell my grandma she was going to kill me, you know? And my grandma got her shotgun, and she said, "You step your foot in here, so help me God, we'll blow you away." So the lady left, and she said, "I don't want your kids hanging around my kid no more," you know? And that was it.
I take it that's where I got my fighting from.
I think so. I think so. She was a tough old bird.
So you said that your family earned money from the coal mine?
Yeah.
Now did you, how do you compare your families to the others in the neighborhood? Were you richer, poorer, or the same?
We were all the same except the ones that owned everything. Everybody lived in the coal miner's house. The guys that owned all of the houses, they worked for the mines. And they had the county, you know, the county store. So you bought all their groceries from their store, and they got paid for how much coal they made each, you know, for how many hours they worked in the mines.
And what'd you spend your money on?
I didn't have any money.
Your family, though.
Well, she paid for her rent, and she bought groceries and whatever, just like any other family. We used to steal coal from the coal cars.
On the train?
And the train. We didn't steal it. They knew that we were going up and getting it, and they'd throw some of it off. And so we would just go up there and pick it up and put it in pails. And I didn't like doing that either. But Uncle Bucky was afraid of the trains. Even though they weren't moving, he was afraid of them. So if the coal was on the other side, you had to crawl through and go over, get the coal. And he never would do that because he was afraid. And I didn't want him to be afraid. And I kept trying to make him strong, you know. And I said, "Brother, it's not going to hurt you, honey. It's not going to go forward or nothing. There's no engine." And he still wouldn't go. So I said, "It's your turn. I'm not getting it." You know, he got so mad. He went over and did it. That he got a big hunk of coal and he threw it over. And of course, when he threw the coal over, it smashed to smithereens. Well, one piece is still in my leg. Now I'm really gonna play it up. We get to Grandma's house, and I let it bleed. You know, I was a martyr. And I got there, and Mama, look what he did to me. He hit me with the coal, and she said, "Well, next time, get out of the way." She didn't buy it.
Suck it up, move on. All right. So what did you make?
One day, my girlfriend said, "Let's make a dollhouse out of the pig pen up on the hill." And I said, "Oh, this thing is filthy up there." And she said, "Oh, we can clean it up, Mary Jo. We'll get it all cleaned up." I said, "Okay." So we went and got some bleach and water and shovels and brooms and whatever. And we scraped it all out, got all the mud out and all the crap and everything. And we went down to the store and got some paper from the they wrapped the cold cuts in, the meat in, and we papered it. We papered all the walls. We taped it, Scotch taped it all. We scrubbed it all down. It was all like Mrs. Clean, anyways. So we scrubbed it all down with bleach and water and got it all. It was white. It was so clean. And we painted the floors. She got some paint from her father's store. And we painted the floors. And we brought all of our doll stuff up and we made a dollhouse.
Out of a pig pen.
Out of the pig pen.
Ain't that some shit?
Yeah, sure is.
And when was Uncle Bucky born?
He was born in 1940.
So 2 years after you?
Yeah, and the way he got his name was we had a cow that was calving. And my uncle came in and my grandma said, and the cow had the calf. And the uncle came in and I think it was Uncle Joe, came in and he said, oh, what did she have? And he said, oh, she had a buck. And I said, oh, Bucky, Bucky. And so that was his name. We called him Bucky.
Named after the cow.
Yeah, no, it was a bull.
Oh, the bull.
It was a bull. And so his name is Everett, but nobody ever called him Everett. It was Bucky.
Now, are you religious?
Yep, my uncle was a Baptist minister. So when I lived with them, I had to read the Bible every night and...
By the Port or light?
Oh, yeah. And we went to church, and my uncle used to, everybody wanted him to do the services, so we went from town to town to town every weekend. And we stayed at some preacher's house every weekend because that's where he preached. Very good preacher. So when I came to Connecticut, I used to sing in the choir at church and everything. And I sang on the radio. The lady at the choir, she took me to West Virginia radio station every Saturday, me and the choir. There's 4 of us. And we were a quartet.
Cool.
And so we would sing on the radio every Saturday. They're all hymns. And then I went to Surrey's, and that was the end of that.
So Catholic from then you changed?
No, I changed to Catholic when I met Dad.
And what year was
When
that?
I came to Connecticut, I came up in Connecticut in 1960. 1958, 57, no, 55. Nana married my stepdad, Adolf Gravinsky. He was the only dad I ever knew. And she brought me and my brother both up here.
And you were about 15 then?
When I was 14. And that's when I came to Connecticut.
All right. All right. So tell me about you when you were tiny, before high school.
Well, most things I remember is after I was in kindergarten. After I finished kindergarten, my brother was going in kindergarten. So my granny told me, the teacher, they had to keep me back so I could take care of my brother. So I stayed back in kindergarten to take care of my brother. I've been a mother hen all my life since my brother was little. So anyway, so I stayed back in kindergarten to take care of my brother, and then we went to school together from there on in the same year. And when we were in 3rd grade, I guess, one day, the teacher was reading us a story, and me and a couple of other kids were throwing spitballs, and the teacher caught us. Well, she caught me, so I had to come up and stand in front of the room until she finished the story. And after that, she paddled me with a paddle, and I had a little square paddle with little holes in it. Well, I was going to live that up when I got home because I really, because of my polio. So I get home, I didn't want my grandmother to yell at me because I was doing something bad in school. So I said, I'm limping really bad. And she said, what's the matter with you? And I said, well, I was throwing spitballs in school, and the teacher made me stand in front of the class, and then afterwards she paddled me. She what? Where did she paddle you? And I said, on my fanny. She bent me over the desk, and she paddled me about 3 times. So, and it really hurt, and I couldn't. And so she looked at it, and I guess it had little marks from the. It hurt. I'm sure it hurt. But anyways, she went down on that teacher, that poor teacher. She yelled at her, don't you ever lay a hand on my young'un again. She's crippled, and now her hip is hurting her. Don't ever do that again. So I got the same teacher next year. And she was so good to me. I was such a devil. I don't care what I did. I got away with it. So that wasn't very good for me. But anyway. We didn't have many things to play with as a kid because we were very poor. And all my grandmother had was her pension from my grandfather. And my mother used to send some money home for her, for me and my brother. So my mother would send me a check because my grandmother was illiterate, and I would take the check to the school for my teacher, and I would give it to him, and for me and my brother to have lunch. But I wouldn't pay for my lunch, I would just pay for my brother's, and I worked in the cafeteria. So that way, I got to eat free, and I got to save my money, and that was the only money I had for spending, unless I would hoe corn or do something like that for the rich lady next door. And she would pay me $5 to work in the field all day. And
$5 for the whole day?
For the whole day.
That's
yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we worked early in the morning until about noon, and then we had to quit because it gets warm down there then. And so I saved up enough money to buy some sandals. And my grandmother was hoeing corn up in the field, and I said, Granny, I'm going over to Delorme to buy me some sandals. You're not buying no sandals. You can't wear no sandals. You stay in this yard. And I said, no, I'm going. You leave this yard, young lady, and I'm going to knock you down, so help me God. I said, bye, Mama. I'm going. I'll see you later. And she picked up a clog of dirt and knocked me down, and I did not go. But I went the next day, but I didn't tell her. And I hid the shoes, and when I went to the movies with the kids, I used to wear the shoes. She didn't know it. And then my brother was such a wimp, and he would play marbles, and he'd always win everybody's marbles. And then they'd take them back from him, and then he'd come and tell me, Joe, they took all of my marbles. And so I would go get the kid, and I'd beat him up, and I'd get the marbles back and give them to my brother. So then there was this other kid in the neighborhood that was very wealthy, and he had every toy that there was. We didn't have any toys. We just played with what everybody else had, and if they shared it with us, we got to play. But anyways, I come up the road and I see all of the kids lined up at the pig pen with their hands up in the air, And this kid with a bow and arrow. And I went over there and I grabbed the bow and arrow and I broke it and I broke his arrows and his bow and the arrows. And he ran home to Mommy, and Mommy came to tell my grandmother. And my grandmother said, "You step foot in this yard, I'm going to blow you away. Just don't come in my yard. Don't let your kids play with my kids no more."
I'll shoot ya.
And that was it. She was going to shoot them.
No,
So
was
we
she,
never played with the kids.
was she a Hatfield?
No. No, my aunt married a Hatfield.
Oh, okay.
That's how I'm a Hatfield. I'm not really a Hatfield. I'm related to a Hatfield.
Did you know any McCoys?
No.
Okay.
They weren't friendly with each other.
Nah, I didn't think
No,
they were.
weren't friendly with each other.
Did you have any pets growing up?
No. All we had were animals. We had our own pig. We had our own cow. We had a horse that would, we'd pull the plow for us. And we had the cow for the milk. We used to make our own. I used to churn the milk to make butter and buttermilk. And we would make our own butter. And then in the fall, we would kill the pig and slaughter it. And that would be our meat for the winter. And we had chickens. We had turkeys. And a farm. I didn't like any of it. I hated the farm.
What was your favorite food?
Beans and cornbread. Bean soup and cornbread. And I like buttermilk with cornbread and gravy with sausage gravy with my eggs. Every morning we used to make that and biscuits for breakfast. And in this fall, we would take all of our vegetables that we grew, and we would can them, and that would be our vegetables for the winter.
How many would you can?
Oh, we canned quite a bit. I would get a galvanized tub, and we'd take the cabbage, and we used to, my grandmother gave me 2 cans that she made, took the tops off and made them really sharp, and I would use that to, cut up the cabbage to make sauerkraut.
Oh, with the ends of the can?
Yep.
That's some rednecking right there.
Oh, that was hard work, and your arms hurt so bad at the end of the day because we had to do the whole thing. And then we'd have to stuff it into the jars, and then we had to carry the water from the well up on the hill. We have to take the water out of the well and then carry it down to put in the jars with the.
So how did you do laundry without water?
and
Water?
We
Running
had-
water?
Well, we would catch the rainwater in a big gallon, a big
Galvanized one?
tub. And we use that water for the washing.
And the
the
washboard?
clothes. And we made our own soap and everything
From
out
the
of
fat?
the lard, out of the fat from the pig.
See? Bacon is the best.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite hiding spot when you were a kid?
No,
No? What
no.
was your favorite toy or game?
I had a doll that I had until I was a teenager. Well, I had it until Kevin got a hold of it, really. I had it on my bed in the spare room, and Kevin got a hold of it and ripped it up.
The Bugman?
You.
Oh, me? Oops.
That was before Kevin.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long did you have that
Oh,
then?
no, that was a long, long time ago. Yeah. I took that with me every place I went. There was one Christmas, we never had Christmas down home. So the only thing we got at Christmas time, we didn't know anything about a Santa Claus. She never told us about a Santa Claus. Because she couldn't buy nothing for us, you know. She was poor thing. She gave us love. That's all we needed. And the church used to bring us over a little stocking, like. So the church would bring us over a stocking like the stocking you buy for your pet now, in that little mesh thing. And in there would be an orange and an apple, some nuts, some hard candy, and a little toy that they could put in there, like a little doll for me and a little truck for brother. And that's all we got for Christmas. So I never had a Christmas or Christmas tree until 1955, when I came up to Connecticut with Nana and Gramps.
Wow.
So.
Did you wear shoes, or did you go barefoot?
No, we wore shoes to school. We got a pair of shoes in the fall for school, a new pair of shoes. And when summer came, we didn't get any shoes. We didn't wear shoes. We went barefooted all the time. So we wore those shoes until we got our next pair. And
what kind of school did you go to?
I went to a regular public school like everybody else. And it was about a mile from my house. And I lived in a little valley. It's all hills down home. And the road was way up there. And I used to sit on my front porch and watch the cars come around, and they'd miss the curve, and they'd go down the bank into the water, drive back up, and get back up on the road. Some did, some just tumbled.
Cool.
But we had this swinging bridge that when you walk up there, you had to come down on this swinging bridge, and it was about 12 feet high, probably more. I don't know. But it had those metal ropes that go across. Metal rope that goes across, and you hold on to that, but it didn't have anything in the middle, and just the lats on the bottom where you walk. So we had no school one day. And then when you got across that bridge, and it swung as you go, it would swing like that. And when you get across, you had to walk down the steps and get down to where the walking part, where the road was down there. So I was always, can't wasn't in my vocab, so anything you could do, I could do. So we walked to school that day because the buses couldn't run because there's no tires, no snow tires down there. It don't snow that often. And so we walked to school, and then we walked home, and then we had to come across this bridge. But my grandmother had me bundled up like a snowman. And thank God. And when we were going across the bridge, it was slippery. And everybody was not holding on and just swinging with it. And making it swing more, because they were big kids on there too, and I was grammar school, some of the high school kids were there. So, anyways, I didn't hold on either. Well, needless to say, I went down in the creek. And how I didn't get killed, I don't know, but I guess I was just, God's watched over me all my life. And they came down and they picked me up, and I walked out of the creek, and I went home, and I didn't even get a bruise.
Wow, nice.
But God has always been good to me, and He watches out for me. So.
Were you a good student?
I was an A student.
Nice. What was your favorite subject?
English.
What subjects you hate?
History.
Who was your best friend?
Down home, it was Della Ray Johnson. Her mom and dad were the rich lady. And so when they used to go for rides on Sunday, I would go over in their yard and ride their bike. I taught myself how to ride the bike. with my bad leg. I did it. But,
Nice.
yeah. I'm sure they knew I was there, but they didn't say nothing anyway.
Did you have a favorite teacher?
No.
So when you got out of high school,
No.
I mean, when did you leave Kentucky to come back up here?
Well, I left Kentucky to go in the 8th grade.
To Michigan?
7th grade. I went to Virginia to stay with my aunt because she was sick. And my uncle wanted me to come so I could help her with the housework. So they came down and got me. I was her favorite niece anyway, so she favored me a lot. So that's why she wanted me up there. And he was a minister. And so we learned the Bible. Every night we had to read the Bible. And every Saturday I had to go with them. They had 2 boys at home. And they wouldn't leave me home with them because I was a girl. And so I had to go with them to every weekend to some church.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, so...
So how did Nana Myrtle meet Gramps?
Okay, my mother was working in Richmond, Virginia, and then she heard there was a job in Camp Pickett, Virginia, on the base there to manage the PX. And she went down and applied for the job, and she got it. And so she worked there, and she was the manager of the PX, and my dad, Al, was in the Army. And so they started dating, and then he was sent over to Korea. And then when he came back, they still were dating, and he asked her to marry him. And she told him, I have 2 kids, and I can't marry you because I got to take my kids, you know. And so he said, well, that's okay. I'll take the kids too, you know. And she wanted to make sure. So she dated him for quite a while. And in 1950, they got married. And he left the Army and went into the what do you call it? The Guards.
In National Guard.
In National Guards up in Connecticut. And so they were living with his mom when they first got up there. And then she came down, my Aunt Dot and my Aunt Sari. Uncle John lost his job in the mines, and so his boys, his older boys, had gone up to Michigan and they got jobs in the car factory, so they told him to come up that he could get a job up there. So we went up there and he got a job up there, so we were living up there. And I didn't go to school once I went up to there because we left like in December. And so I never finished the 8th grade because we left and went up there, and I refused to go to school up there. I didn't want to go. And
Pick up your phone!
my mother saw that, so I wrote my mom a letter because I used to write to my mother all the time, let her know how I was doing and all. And my aunt's, my uncle's niece came up there from college. She had the summer off from college, and she came up there to stay with us, and we used to go to the beach every day. And I think I told this story already. And we got a job.
Pick up your phone!
What do you call it? In a car hop place, and we worked there and told my mother knew. I wrote and told my mother about it, and she said, get her ready, I'm bringing her home. So I went back to Connecticut, and I went to school up there, and I was a freshman, and we told them that I graduated from the 8th grade, but they never checked my records. If they had to check, well, I was an A student because I used to save all my papers to show my mom And so I had all those papers, so she took those with us when she registered me at school, and they put me in freshman. So I started freshman year, and I was in homeroom every day. This kid used to come in, and everybody wanted me to talk, but I was very shy, believe it or not. I wouldn't talk, because every time I talked, they laughed. And I thought they were laughing at me, you know. So I wouldn't talk. So everybody liked to hear me talk, but I was too shy to talk, so I wouldn't talk. So this kid used to come in my homeroom every day. He was in another homeroom. He was in my class, but to this day I don't know who he was. And he would tease me, and I wouldn't talk. But this one day, he grabbed my purse, and that really made me angry. So I jumped up and I started chasing him through the classroom. And that was an awful sight because I limped really bad because my polio hadn't had the operation on my leg yet. And I said, "You give me back my pocketbook or I'm going to slap the fire right out of you." And he gave me my pocketbook, and I never saw him ever again. I don't know who he was, where he was from, whatever. To this day, I don't know who he was. I know he was in my class, but I don't know who he was. But anyways, that was my experience in my first time at a high school. Then in 1955, when I was a sophomore, that summer before I became a sophomore, I had an operation on my ankle, on my heel cord, to lengthen my heel cord. So I had a cast on my leg from my toes all the way up to my hip.
Wow.
And I had that on for 6 months. And we had 3 floors in our high school, so I would always have to be let out of class early. Somebody would carry my books and would take me upstairs. And so that went on for quite a while. And we had the school newspaper, and they had something in there about a Mary that hailed from New York, and don't lose your accent, Mary, we love it, you know. And I said, "Oh, God," and her name is Mary Jo Thacker. And I said, "Oh, my God, there's somebody like me here." And she's from New York. I got to find her. So I kept asking, "Who's this Mary Thacker? I don't know." They said, "It's you, Mary Jo." I said, "Well, next time get it all straight. I got an accent, but it's not New York. It's Kentucky." "Oh," she said, "we got the wrong state." I said, "Yeah, that's why I was looking for her, you know."
Hey.
But that was, you know. So I was kind of popular in school. Everybody liked me, and they voted me in. I was a class representative all through high school, and I tried out for majorette, and I made it, but because of my legs, I couldn't march, so I had to quit. I didn't stay in the majorette, so I didn't do that.
What year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 1958, and then my girlfriend and she wanted to be a stewardess. So I said, "Oh, that would be fun. I think I'll go with you. I'll try too." So we both went to go to, for American Airlines. They were having people coming in for new jobs. So we went in and applied for the stewardess job. And I was worried because it said you couldn't have a visible scar. But back in the day when we did this, the stewardesses had to be 5'3" to 5'8", I think. Well, I was 5'2". And you couldn't have any visible scars. So I was concerned because I had a scar on the back of my heel from my surgery on my heel cord, but I didn't limp anymore, and I was perfect. I just had the scar, and so that's what I was worried about. So when we got into the guy's room, he said, "Okay, Mary, before you sit down, on the wall over there we have a measure. Go over and stand there." So I stretched and stretched. He said, "You can keep stretching, but you're not going to make it." So I was too short. So he wanted me to be an air traffic controller.
Wow.
I said, "No, I don't want to do that." "But you'd be great." "No, I'm not going to do that." So I went home. But she got the job, and she was a stewardess, and I went home. And then I got a job at the Aetna insurance company. And when I graduated, and I worked there until I got married. And I met my husband. He used to follow me and my girlfriend around all the time. And it was one Christmas Eve, 1957. And I bought bowling balls for my dad for Christmas. And there were those small balls, the 3 of them. And I had other gifts that I had bought that day. And I missed the bus. And I had quite a ways to walk. And I said, "Oh, God, I don't know if I'm going to make it all the way down to home, you know." And I didn't have anybody to call to take me home. So this guy that had been following us around all the time stopped at the red light. And he's waving to me, so I bent down and I said, "How about a ride?" And he said, "Sure, get in." So I got in and I closed the door, and he looks at me and he goes, "I suppose I'm supposed to know you." And I said, "Oh my God, you don't know me? Okay, don't go no place. Let me out, let me out, let me out." He said, "No, I know you, I know you. I just was fooling." And so he said, "Where to?" And I said, "Home. And you know where home is because you followed me home." And he said, "Yeah, I know." So he took me home.
And what was he driving?
He was driving a convertible Pontiac, white convertible Pontiac. And he had just come home from the service and gotten a job at the fire department. He was a private at the fire department, firefighter. And he said, "What are you doing tonight?" And I said, "Well, my aunt and uncle and my grandparents, we have a big dinner, and we open our guests tonight, and you could stop over if you'd like to stop over." And he said, "Yeah, because we're not doing nothing tonight either." He said, "Maybe I will." And I said, "Okay." And so I went in, and that was the end of that. A friend of mine called and said, "Mary Jo, my cousin's home from college and wants to go out with you on a double date tonight. So would you go?" And I said, "Well, I sort of got a date, but I'm not sure." She said, "Oh, no, he's going to be disappointed. Why don't you come? The guy probably won't show up." I said, "Yeah, you're right. Okay, I'll go." So 7:30, before they came to pick me up, here comes this guy with a nice suit on, really gorgeous, you know, and I'm saying, "Oh my God. Brother, go tell him I had to go to my aunt's." My mother said, "You made the date, you break the date. You don't make your brother do your dirty work." So I went to the door and I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "I didn't know you were coming. I made other plans." "Well, how about next Friday night?" I said, "Okay." Figuring Friday night he's going to stand me up, because if that had been me, I would have stood him up. You know, I wouldn't have come back. But here he comes with this nice suit again, and he took me to my first dinner dance. And I said, "Oh, please, God, don't let him ask me to dance," because I was a good dancer, and he didn't look like he could dance. So I said, "I don't want him to look, you know, foolish out there. So, sure enough, he asked me to dance. I got up to dance, and he was better than me. So that worked out. So the rest is history. I ended up marrying the guy 5 years later. And we bought our little house before we got married, and we saved and bought the house, and then we went on our honeymoon, and we came back, and I was pregnant.
Must have been an active honeymoon, Mom.
It was. Yeah.
What, from then on, then you just decided to do what? You get a job, or are you going to stay home with the kid?
No, I got pregnant right away, and I wanted to work, and I worked, but back then you could only work for 6 months, and then you had to quit. So I worked for 6 months, and then I wasn't, my husband wouldn't let me work. He said, "You're not working, you're going to stay home with the kids." So I said, "Well, I got to go in, and I'll flunk the test, because they have to give you another test," I thought, you know. So I went back to the Aetna, and she said, "Well, let me call up your boss." And she called him up, and he said, "Send her up here. I got something she can do. She's so good." She said, I find a job for her. Send her up here. So when can you come? When can you start? And I said, "Well, I can't really. I got to get a sitter first." He said, "Okay, well, let me know." So I came home, and Dad said, "No, you're not working. You got to stay home." So I did. I stayed home. So I stayed home until the kids were in kindergarten. Both kids. Ronnie was in 1st grade, and you were in kindergarten. And Caldors came to town and opened up a store. So I took the kids up to my mother-in-law's and told her I had an appointment. And I went up and applied for a job, and I got the job. And I said, "I can't work, nights. My husband works nights, and so I can't work nights." And so they said, "Okay, we'll work around your schedule." So I only worked when the kids were in school. And when the kids were home, I was home. And after the store had opened for a while, they overhired, and they let a lot of us go, so they let me go. But then I got the itch for working. So I got a job as a TV hostess up at the hospital. I did that for a while. I worked at Michael's Jewelers.
What was the hourly rate back then?
I started driving bus. I don't remember what I got at Michael's, and I managed the thing at the TV thing at the hospital. But I got a job driving bus on a dare. A friend of mine said I couldn't drive a bus, and I said, "Watch me." And so I went down and applied for the job, and the guy said, "When can you start?" And I said, "Oh, I can't drive a bus. I can't drive a standard." And he said, "That's okay." He said, "We got automatics." So I said, "Okay." So I got the job, and I worked there for the 35 years I drove the school bus.
How much was gas?
I was paid I was paid $2.50 an hour.
How much was gasoline back then?
50 cents.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
How much was your house when you bought it?
$12,000.
Phew.
And the people that bought it before me, they bought it during the flood, after the flood of '55, and it cost them $5,000.
Wow.
They paid $5,000 for that house.
And how old were you when you got married?
I was 23, I think.
In what year?
62.
Big wedding?
Big wedding. Yeah, I had a flower girl, I had a junior bridesmaid, and I had 3 bridesmaids and maid of honor. big wedding, 350 people,
Wow.
and I paid for the wedding myself.
Shoo.
Nana couldn't afford it. I bought the dress, I bought everything, and paid for the food, I paid for everything.
And you have how many kids? 2 kids,
I
right?
had 2 kids, Ronnie and Kevin.
Um,
And Ronnie had 2 girls, and Kevin had a girl and a boy. And now
and how did?
has
Oh, good.
Kevin has a little grandson, so I got a great grandson, Jaden.
The Squeaks.
The Squeak.
And how did you decide what to name your kids?
Well, your dad had to name Kevin Ronnie, so he named him Junior. So then I got that name Kevin, and I didn't know what to call him because I was going to call him Randall because I just liked the name Randall. And my sister-in-law had a little boy a month before I had Kevin, and she named him Randy. So therefore I couldn't name him Randall because we already have a Randy. So I didn't know what to call him, so I kept calling Kevin. At that time he had no name, and I kept calling him Randy. And the lady in the room next to me, she kept saying, I thought he didn't have a name. I said, he doesn't. That's not his name. I said, I was going to call him Randy. And my sister-in-law named the kid Randy, and now I got to figure out a name. So my friend, my very best friend, her and her brother came up with Kevin. Aunt Marilyn really named you. And so I called him Kevin. And Ron said he's got to be awful tough to have the name. Why did you name him that? And I said, because it's a pretty name. It's a nice name. And he said, well, he's got to be tough to protect that name, he said. Then when I had him baptized, the priest says to me, what's his name? And I said, Kevin. That's not a saint. And I said, yes, it is. It's an Irish saint. Well, that's not a name for a Lebanese kid. So I said, well, we'll call him Mark, Kevin Mark. So I said, Mark is a that's a saint too. So then when he was confirmed, we called him Anthony. So he's Kevin Mark Anthony.
Nice. What's your favorite story about Ronnie, and what's your favorite story about Kevin growing up?
Okay. I don't know, Ronnie was just, he just wanted to learn. He didn't want to do anything. All he wanted to do was read books and watch TV. And I said, Ronnie, you can't just do that. You have to get exercises. So he didn't want to do nothing. I mean, Kevin would go outside and play. Ronnie would sit and read books. So I took the 2 of them on a Saturday over to the bowling alley, and I signed them up for junior bowling. And Ronnie cried and cried and cried, Mommy, don't leave me, Mommy, don't leave me. I mean, I was with these kids 24/7. They never saw anybody but me. And so I said, no, Ronnie, I have to go home and do the housework. You have to stay here with your friends and your brother, and when it's done, I'll come back and get you. So he stayed. Well, I created a monster with Ronnie, because that's all he wanted to do was bowl after that. He was a beautiful bowler. Kevin was another story. Kevin did everything. Kevin, he was a sports kid. He loved his sports. And at school, he played hockey as soccer. His school didn't provide much. They didn't have a football team. They didn't have a soccer team. So he was on the soccer team. And he came home one day and he said, Ma, I made varsity on tennis. I said, Kevin, you can't even play tennis. How could you be on varsity? You mean you're on You know, JV. No, I'm on varsity and I'm playing tomorrow. I said, no, Kevin, I don't believe you. He said, Ma, honest, I'm going to play on the varsity team. So I hurried up and did my run with because I was driving bus then. Took all those kids home, and then I came home and got my car, and I went down, and they were playing at the park. And they pulled off, and sure enough, he's playing. I bought him the shorts and all of the things he needed, the racket and all that. There he is playing tennis, and he's playing like he knows what he's doing. So I'm sitting in the car, and the coach comes over, and he said, are you Mrs. Corey? And I said, yeah. He said, he's the only one winning out there. I said, because the other kid don't know what the hell he's doing. So he's got him off guard, and that's why he's winning. He doesn't know how to play. He does now. He didn't know when he applied. He didn't know how to keep score. He didn't know how to serve. He didn't know how to do anything. But he does now, and he's good. So, and he was. He ended up getting the only kid in that school that ever got a sports scholarship. He was very good.
And he didn't take it.
He didn't take it. He had to go to another school. He wanted to go to another school. So,
What is something embarrassing or funny that one of your kids said at an early age that you'll never forget? We never embarrassed you?
no.
Phew.
No, you kids were very well behaved. You were awful at home. Nobody saw the bad side of you because I had to deal with it. But when I took you kids anywhere, people were amazed at, and they still are, at how well behaved you kids are. And I think it's because I had the luxury of staying home with you and teaching you the right way to do things and not do things. And, you know, I was there. And the poor kids now, their parents can't afford to stay home. And they have to sort of, like, fend for themselves. And that's a disadvantage for them.
That is true. What's the most memorable family vacation?
Just going to Cape Cod. I love going to Cape Cod. It was very tough on me because I did all the work. But I loved being with the family, you know. And the kids they always got to bring a friend with them. So they each had their own friend. So it made it fun for them. And we took the dog, and it was just a big family. And the Aunt Stella came with us. And so those days at the Cape were the best for me.
What about holidays? What one holiday moment that stands out?
Well, we knew in town, in Torrington, we have a Christmas village. And every Christmas Eve we would open our gifts on Christmas Eve, because the kids would come down from Massachusetts and Jersey, and then they'd come to my house, and we'd have my mom and dad and Stella. And we'd have a party downstairs, and the Christmas Village, we had a Santa Claus that used to come to the Christmas Village, and it was open from about the 2nd of December until Christmas Eve. And the kids could go there and see Santa and, you know, all of that. So the kids would take the kids down, the grandkids down to Christmas Village. They'd see Santa, and he'd give them a gift. And so this one day, we asked Santa if he could come to our house. So I bought toys for all the kids and gave them to him. And he was supposed to bring those and give them to the kids. So after Christmas Village closed, he came up to our house in his Santa suit. And he comes downstairs, and he had gone to breakfast that morning. We took the kids to breakfast, and Santa was at breakfast that morning. But of course, they didn't know it was Santa. And Kevin and Katie were kind of fighting with each other. So he noticed that. And so when we got downstairs, when he came downstairs, he had all this stuff in his sack, you know. But he forgot Kevin's toy in the car. It must have fallen out of the sack when he put it in. And so he had Katie on the lap and gave Katie her gift. And, were you good? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then he had Amanda and Alexa, right? Then he got Kevin. And he knows now that his bag is empty. So he says to Kevin, have you been a good boy? He said, yeah. He said, well, how about the breakfast this morning? You were kind of picking on your sister a little bit. His face just went blank. But no, it was Katie. She was doing, and he was making an excuse. So he said, well, I didn't bring you anything. I don't, the bag is empty, so I must not have brought it because you were naughty today. Well, the kid just went over in the corner and just sulked, you know. So I said to him, what did you do with this gift, you know? He says, I don't know, Mary Jo. I've got to go look in the truck. Maybe it's in the truck. I'll find it. I'll bring it in. So he did. He went and he found it. It was in the truck, and he came in, and he said, where's Kevin? So Kevin came over, and he said, I'm sorry, Kevin. I found this in my sleigh, and it said Kevin on it. I am so sorry. It was a different Kevin that I was talking about. So here is your present. And so that was one of my holiday things.
Nice.
It's got me.
You are live, Mom.
It looks like it's way down here.
It's perfect.
Oh, good.
It's just zoomed in for you, woman.
Oh, good.
All right. What's the best thing about being a parent?
You're looking at him. I have two wonderful, wonderful boys that any mother would kill for. They are so attentive and so loving and caring, and I could not survive without them. I'm just so thankful that I got the two boys. I always wanted a little girl for Ron, but I'm glad I didn't have a little girl. I got my two boys, and that's all I need. And I got a lot of people here that envy me because of this one here. Kevin is just precious. My Ronnie is precious. I am just blessed to have them.
I'm a little famous at the home here.
Yeah, he is kind of famous at the home here. Every time he comes, when he leaves, if he forgets to hug somebody in the lobby there, they'll go, and he turns around and he looks and they go, and he has to come back and hug them and give them a kiss. And off he goes.
What's the best thing about being a grandparent?
That's even better.
You can give them back.
I can give them back. I can keep them. I can doll on them. I can let them do anything they want to do. And I retrain them to do all the bad things. And then they go home. But then they get in a little trouble with Mom and Dad because you're not at Situ's anymore. So you have to be back. You're in reality here. But that, and then now I've got a great-grandson. Oh, God help us. I don't know what their parents are going to do. If I ever get to keep him by himself, they're going to be in trouble.
If you had one thing to say to Squeaks as he watches this years down the road, what would you want to tell him?
To do what your dad and mom tell you. Never lie. Because if you lie, you're going to get caught. No matter what it is, eventually you'll get caught. So don't lie. And be true to your parents. Anything you have to say to your parents, you tell them, because they're there for you. And this is what I did with my two boys. I was attached to the hip with my kids. I lived with them 24/7. I never left them. And they knew right from wrong, and I just want you to do what your parents tell you. Your parents are wise. They know what to do. Please listen to them. Sometimes you don't agree with them, but in the long run, they're right. And love them, because nobody loves you more than your parents. And you love them back.
You have any nicknames as a child or an adult?
No, I didn't.
How are you like Nana? How are you like your mom? In any way?
I'm not
Or
like
unlike?
my mom. I'm like my grandmother. I lived with my grandmother all my life until I was a teenager. And so I got all of my upbringing from my grandma. And she was a very wise lady. She was illiterate and she couldn't count or read or anything, but she had the street smarts of God knows what. She was so wise, and she taught me all I know. And she was God-fearing, and so am I. And Nana had a few nicknames. If she was mad at me, she'd call me Joannie. And so if I heard Joannie, I knew she was mad at me for something. But that's the only nickname I got. I was always Mary Jo.
How are your kids like you or unlike you?
Kevin is exactly like me. He's hyper. He's always doing things. He can't sit still. We're so much alike. We clashed when he was little. My mother used to say, "You're just like him, and that's why you're clashing." And my Ronnie is like his dad, except he's got my will to gab. He loves to gab. His father wasn't a talker. I've been a talker all my life.
Magnet.
Give me give me somebody to listen, and I'll talk forever.
What are your 3 best qualities, you would say?
I hope it's my caring, my will to listen, and my fear for God.
What's your favorite memory with Bugman, Katie, Amanda, and Alexa? So we'll start with Bugman.
Okay.
Oh, Alexa,
Yeah,
stop.
Oh, you're saying her name. Bugman, I had him when he was 3 months old. I had him for a whole week. And when he was 6 months old, I used to sit him on the counter, and he would make kibbe with me. I'd be making kibbe, and he'd get in there with his little hands, and he would just squirm and fix it. And when he was with me, he never knew how to make his own fun. So when I had Kevin, I had him 24/7 like his dad. I had to show him what to do, play with him, whatever he was doing, I had to do. So I never got to sit down. And when he went home, I was happy. I was happy when he came, but I was happy when he went, because I was working and I was still doing my housework and still babysitting. And I had him all, for 2 weeks there. It was fun. It was fun, and I enjoyed it.
What about Katie?
Katie was fabulous. She got her way. And little Kevin Jr. said, "Katie, Situ likes a good listener." You're not listening. And so I said, yes, Katie, that's what I do like, so good listener, and I don't like to tell you 3 times, you got to listen. And then one day, her and her brother were fighting again, and I was yelling at them. And I went, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this picture, guys. Sister's not supposed to be yelling. We're supposed to be having fun. And I want you to sit there for a minute and think about what you're doing. And don't you say a word, because Katie started to say something. And I said, don't say anything, just listen. I like a good listener, remember? I like a good listener. And I'm talking and talking and talking and talking, and what you shouldn't do that to your sister, you should blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, say something. And Kevin looked at me and said, Situ, you said not to say nothing. I said, so I got up and I went in the other room and I laughed, and then I came back and I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to argue and fight. You're your sister, and you got to behave, and you got to love each other. And I did my thing, and they were back to fine. Then one day I just had Katie. And Katie was great because she would make her own fun. You give her a bunch of blocks or Legos, and she would stay there for hours. So I said, honey, Situ has to make dinner now, so I'm going to have you do your Legos. You put them over in the corner here, so if Situ has to go by, I don't trip. So she said, okay, Situ. So we put it all in the corner. And it was in the sunroom. So I'm in the kitchen cooking, and I can see her from where I am. And I look in, and the sun is right on her face. So I wanted to go in and close the blinds so she wouldn't get the sun on her. So I stepped over the Legos, and I slipped on one, and I did the most beautiful split you ever saw. I'm sitting here dying. It hurts so bad. And she's got her hand to her mouth. She don't want to laugh because it's funny to do the split. And I started, I looked at her and I said, she goes, Situ, I didn't know you knew how to do the split.
Alexa, stop. Oh.
And she started, so I started laughing. I said, honey, I don't, and it hurts really bad. She said, I'm sorry, Situ. And I said, it's okay, honey, it's not your fault. It was Situ's fault. I should have known better to do that. That was Katie.
What about Amanda?
Amanda and Alexa, I usually had the 2 of them at the same time. And I would keep them for a week at a time. And I don't like using the dryer. I use my clothesline for a lot of my clothes that I wash outside. And so I kept hanging clothes out, washing clothes and hanging them out. And Amanda said, Situ, don't you have a dryer? I said, yeah. Well, why are you hanging them up on the line? I said, because they smell nice. When I take them in, they smell real nice. I fold them up and they smell real nice. So we had the swimming pool there, and they were swimming. So they wanted to hang up the clothes. So I didn't have any more to hang, so I gave them all the towels. So they would hang up the towels, push them all out, and pull them all back in, fold them up, and they would do this for hours. I said, when you get to be a young woman, you're not going to want to do that. But right now you want to do it, do it. And then we had a little, we played tea party. I didn't have any teacups or anything for them. But we made believe, and we would play. They would make with the grass. They'd pull up grass and the little gravels back there they had, and that would be their cookies and their whatever. We pretended, so.
Which do you think that you have the most of? Talent, intelligence, education, or persistence?
Persistence.
Why?
Because I always finish what I do. If I start something, I finish it.
Describe what your family did on Sundays for Sunday dinner.
Well, on Sundays we used to take turns, and my mother-in-law lived in my town. My mom and dad lived in another town, about a half a mile away. So every other Sunday we would go to my mother's, and she would make us country, down home kind of cooking from down south, because I'm from the south. And when we would stay there and have dinner. Then we go, on the other week, we would go to my mother-in-law's, and there they would have Lebanese dinner. So we'd have a Lebanese dinner, and they had a big family, so there was always a lot of kids there for my kids to play with, all their cousins. They had about 15 or 20 cousins, and the house was really full.
That was awesome. So every Saturday, Nana and Gramps took us to Woolworth's for lunch
Nana
and a
used to come
toy,
up- yeah.
and then we had the sleepover with Jiffy Pop popcorn. What did you and Pops do while we were out on the sleepover?
We would go out. We would go out to dinner, or we'd go to a dance, or we'd go someplace. We weren't going to stay at home on the day we had a night out. Mother used to come on Saturday morning, and I'd say, oh, please, God, let her ask to take them home. I wouldn't ask her to take them because she worked, and I didn't want her to do it if she was tired, So I would just, wait for her to ask. So sometimes she would, sometimes she wouldn't. And she used to come every Saturday with a gift for the kids, a toy of some sort. And I said, Mother, from now on, then do not bring them any toys. I want them to want you to come here for you. I want them to love you for you, not for the toy. So if you bring them a toy, I will not let them use it. I will donate it to some little kid that doesn't have anything. But do not bring another toy here on a Saturday, ever again. So she was very upset with me. But Joe, she said, I have to do something for them. I just love the kids, and I don't care. I want them to love you for you, not for what you're going to give them, but for you. So she got around that by taking them to Woolworth's for lunch. And then she'd let them go pick something out. And they still got a gift, and they came home with the gift. And that really upset me, but I couldn't do nothing about it then. She was more power than I was.
Do you have a favorite book?
No. Yeah, I like that book they got for little Kevin. What was it? No, that I bought for your brother. Or I think I bought it for Kevin. I can't think of the name of it. The Orient Express or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever.
The Polar Express.
Polar Express. Because one time I was making lunch for Ronnie and Kevin when they were, 4 and 5. No, they must have been 6 or 7. And they're riding a school bus, so they know there's no Santa Claus. On the school bus, they said there's no Santa Claus. So they're eating lunch one day, and I'm washing up the dishes. I made them lunch, and I was cleaning up my mess. Ronnie said, Mommy, I'm going to ask you a question, and don't tell me a lie. And don't lie to me. And I said, Ronnie, have I ever lied to you before? And he said, no. I said, then I'm not going to do it now. So what do you want to know? He said, is there a Santa Claus? I said, oh, Jesus, what do I tell him? I'm looking out the window. And I said, well, Ronnie, if you believe there's a Santa Claus, there's a Santa Claus. If you don't believe there's a Santa Claus, then there's no Santa Claus. But when you get up on Christmas morning and Santa Claus leaves some toys for your brother, but not for you. I believe, he said. And that was the end of that. So I didn't lie to him, and I still have never lied to him, and I never will. And then one other time I was making dinner for him. I made lunch for him, and he didn't like what I made. And he said, I don't want to eat this, Mommy. I don't like it. And I said, well, you have to take a few bites. You don't know if you don't like it until you taste it. I'm not eating it, he said. I said, Ronnie, don't you know there's a lot of little kids that don't have anything to eat, and they would love to have a morsel of what you throw away. And he said, well, why don't you put it in a box and mail it to them? And I said, well, I don't know where they live, so I can't do that. So I guess we'll have to just throw that away.
What are the top 2 news events during your lifetime, and why?
That what?
The top 2 news events, like major things that happened in your life.
That happened in my life. Oh, and you mean like the town?
Like
towers?
anything from
the Twin Tower things.
9/11?
And 9/11. I was driving bus then, and I knew Ronnie was going someplace on a business trip on a plane that morning, because he always told me the day before. He calls me every day, and he told me he was going to someplace the next morning. And my husband and I were having breakfast at a restaurant, and some guy came out and said that there was a big a plane went into the towers in New York City, and I didn't know if he was going on to New York or Newark. So I said, Ronnie, we got to get home, because Ronnie's supposed to be going on a plane, and I don't know if he's on that plane. And so we just left. We left the restaurant, we went home, and just as we got in, the phone was ringing, and it was Ronnie. And he said, Mom, okay, I got off the plane, we were on taxiing, and they stopped the plane, and they got us off, and I even caught my guy. He hadn't left yet, so I'm on my way home. I'm fine. So that was a good thing for me. It was a bad thing for everybody else, because we lost a lot of good people that day. And what else? We had the 55 flood. When I first went up to Connecticut, they had the 55 flood. And people lost all their houses, and a lot of lives were lost and everything. And at that time, I had an operation on my leg for my polio. And I had a cast from my toes all the way up to my hip. And I had to be like that for 6 months. And so my mom and dad came upstairs, and my dad said, come on, I got to carry you downstairs, because we might have to leave. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. And I said, why? I'm not going no place. And he said, no, there's a flood, and it's up to the back door, and we're going to have to leave. And so we did. We had to leave and go to higher ground. And then we came back to the house. We were lucky it receded, afterwards, but it was very bad.
It was like 35 feet high, I heard.
It was. We lost most of the town of Torrington, and we lost all of Winstead. But that was a big thing in our life.
If you could travel into the future, would you rather see something that specifically relates to you, or something that relates to the future of the country in general, and why?
Oh, I'd like to see something in the future. My life is history. I want to go to the future. But I've seen things. I've seen everything there is to see. I'm blessed because I've gotten to go all these places, and I've seen almost everything. And if there's something in the future that I would love to see, more so than what I see now.
If you could have 3 wishes right now, what would it be?
one, that I had my legs back, and then I'd be more independent again. I would love to see my kids get married. Oh, God, those little ones. Alexa to graduate from college. I want to see that.
Arthur Bostrom.
Alexa,
Should that
stop.
answer
Evan. I'd like to see Evan graduate from college. I'd like to see Katie get married and have some little babies. I'd like to see Kevin Jr. Find some beautiful lady that's going to be good for him and settle down. And my kids ride off in the wild blue yonder on their motorcycles.
I can do that. If you won $1 million right now, what would you do with the money?
I'd give it to my kids.
I hope you win, Ma.
Me too. What am I going to do with $1 million? You can't win if you don't play. So
What is the
you're not
most
gonna win.
memorable phone call you've ever had?
Oh, Lord. I think it was when Kevin called and said you were going to have a baby. You were the first baby. My grandson, my first baby.
That's it. What's the best compliment you think you've ever received?
When my husband had cancer, we had to go to Sloan. We didn't have to go. We took him to Sloan to see if they could save him. And we were there quite a while. And one of the ladies, doctors, came out to me one day and sat down and said, "Mrs. Corey, could I talk to you for a while?" I said, "Sure." And so she said, "I have noticed how attentive your two boys are with you and your husband. I've never seen that before." She said, "I have two little boys, they're 6 and 9, and I would love for them to be like those two boys. They are so good and so attentive to the two of you, not just one or the other, the two of you. What did you do to do that, to get them to be that good to you?" And I said, "I just gave them all the love I had. I didn't work. I was fortunate that I didn't have to work when they were young, when they were babies. I didn't work until they went to school. And so I was with them. They were attached at the hip. I went 24/7 with these kids. I taught them to play baseball. I taught them to bowl. I taught them everything they know. I did it because their father was working 2 jobs and he couldn't do it. And so that's what I did. And so they learned the right way to do things because they knew. And my boys never came to me and said, "Ma, I want to go to Johnny's tonight. Can I go?" And I would say, "Well, I'll think about it." They knew not to come back and pester me, because then I would say, "No, you can't go." And if they did something wrong and I said, "If you do that again, we're not going out to dinner, or we're not going here, or we're not going wherever it was that we," and a lot of things I missed out on because I stayed home with whoever it was that was bad. And they knew that if Ma said, "We're not going, if you say it again, I am not," so I did that. And I said, I think that was why, because I was with them all the time.
I know that feeling. I missed a lot too.
Yes, you did.
What's the craziest thing you ever did?
I smoked corn silks.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah. When I was maybe 12, 13, my girlfriend's dad owned the grocery store. And we got the paper that you wrap the cold cuts in.
Oh my God.
And we took it out in the cornfield and we rolled the corn silks. And we smoked them. It wasn't very pleasant.
I don't think
We
it
didn't
would
do it
be.
again.
What frightened you when you were younger?
Rattlesnakes.
I don't blame you.
I had to go get the cow. I hated the cow, and she wouldn't give me milk. So my grandmother said, "Well, if your brother has to milk the cow, you got to go get her." And I had to go up in the mountains and get her. She had a cowbell on, but I could never find her. And I would look all over, and every time I went up there, I would see a rattlesnake. And I had very bad legs then, and I couldn't run. And so I just knew I was going to get bit by it, but I never did.
What's one thing you always wanted but still don't have? Your Mercedes.
Nothing, really.
Your Mercedes.
My Mercedes, yeah. That was a dream car.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Mercedes convertible. I wouldn't even want it now. But I always wanted it, because this rich lady had one, and I always wanted it.
What's your favorite sport?
Basketball.
And your favorite sports team?
The Huskies, Yukon Huskies.
And what's a typical day like now in today's world?
In my life,
No, as of like today, the present. What's your typical type of day?
well, it has to be how I plan my day. Well, it's not bad for an old lady. I mean, I'm old, and I can't walk, so I think it's a pretty good day. I have a nice little place here where I live, and the people here are just fabulous. I get along with everybody here. And
And what do you like to do for fun?
I play blackjack. And we go out to lunch once a week, and we're going to the concert. We went to a Christmas concert last week. This coming Sunday, we're going to the symphony. And so there's, something for us to do every day. Really nice.
And when did you find out you had the kidney disease?
About 11, 12 years ago.
And you started dialysis how long after that?
About 4 years. I don't know, this is my 7th year on dialysis, so I started dialysis, Ron died in August, and I started dialysis in
2005, yeah.
in September.
Did you try to find a kidney donor?
I did find this one man. I found several. There was a little a girl at the nursing home, and I had congenital heart failure, and then after I had to go to the nursing home for rehab. And this little girl came in one morning and she said, "Mrs. Corey, I dreamed and thought of you all night. And I had to ask you this. I want to give you one of my kidneys." And I said, "Honey, you don't want to do that. You can't say that right now." She said, "Why not? You need a kidney, right?" I said, "Oh, yes, I need a kidney." But I said, "I don't know if you would be able to do that, honey, because you have little kids, and you have to have an operation. It's a 6 week, a 6 weeks recoup from your operation that you're going to have to give me your kidney. So it's like an operation for you and an operation for me." And I said, "You won't get to work for 6 weeks. You might need that money. Who's going to watch your kids while you're recouping? Your husband has to work." So you go home and you talk with your husband, and you figure out what you can, if you can live on one paycheck, you know, and all of that. And I understand you don't have to do it, you know. So she came back the next day, and she had talked to her doctor, and she talked to her, what do you call it, her husband, and they told her no, she couldn't. Then I had this nice Vietnam vet. I didn't know him from Adam. He called Kevin and said, I hear your mom needs a kidney, and Kevin said, yeah. And he said, well, she can have one of mine. And so Kevin called me, and I said, well, just send him the paper and let him look at it. I mean, he's got to know it's a big, drawn-out thing, and I don't know if he want to do that, but let him know. So Kevin did, and this guy went through the whole thing. We were almost ready to do it. 6 months. He went through all the tests and everything. And then they told him he had some, one of his drugs that he took wouldn't match my kidney or whatever. It might give us complications. So he couldn't do it, so they backed out. So they couldn't do it, and he was so angry. But everything happens for a reason, and so we have to look at it that way. We can't blame ourselves for anything.
There are some ages that we just don't look forward to. What birthday were you least enthusiastic about, and why? So
My 30th birthday.
You didn't want to turn 30?
I didn't want to turn 30 because you're old. Oh, I didn't want to be old. And I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do nothing. And Dad said, well, we're going out. We're going to a dance tonight. We're going to have fun. We're going to have dinner. Then we're going to go to the dance. Okay, we went. I couldn't wait to get home. I had such a headache. All I wanted to do was cry. I came home. I made me a pot of coffee, and I sat down and started drinking my coffee, and I'm crying. Ron said, what the hell are you crying for? I said, I'm 30 years old. I'm old. And that was the worst birthday.
50 years later, here we go.
And now I'm 80, and I am having a ball.
If you can go back to any age, what would it be?
I'd go back to my high school.
Sweet.
It was fun years.
When did you decide to move up to Massachusetts, and why?
Oh, well, I had a dilemma. Ronnie lived in Jersey. Ronnie made me a beautiful room and a bathroom, all handicapped for me. It was beautiful, and it is beautiful. And when he remodeled his house, and they did that for me, because they knew eventually I would be in a wheelchair, because the polio doctor told me that was going to happen to me. And so Kevin said, Ma, I will add on Kevin's house. I got to go upstairs to the bathroom. So I can't walk up the stairs, so I can't go to the bathroom if I go to his house. So he said, I'll build a bathroom and another room on the back of the house, Ma, and you can live there. I said, I don't want to live with either one of you. And it's not because of you or anything. It's because you don't need me as a crutch at your house. I know what it's like for my kids to go away to college and then go get their job and get married, and just me and Ronnie there. And those were the best years of my life, was for me and Ron together, because we had time to find each other. We didn't have time for each other when my kids were growing up, because it was my kids and my kids and my kids. I don't care what. It was my kids. And when they were fine, we just started traveling, going places, doing things, and we rediscovered each other. And that made our love much more defined back again, you know. And that's why I came up here, because Ronnie and Melissa work 24/7. Nobody's home. So I would be by myself there all the time because I'm too old to make new friends. I mean, where am I going to go? I can't walk. So I can't make new friends now because I'm, you know. And Kevin, of course, I can't live with him because I don't want to. And so I said, I called up one day, I was watching TV, and Joan London came on and said, a place for Mom. That's what I need, a place for Mom. So I took the number down, and the next day I called, and it was a rental, real estate place. And they wanted to know where I wanted to go. And I wanted to go up into Massachusetts because Kevin has family here that I know very well. I mean, Kathy's family is very, very nice, and I knew I would fit in good with them. And if I went into a nursing home, there's all kinds of people there. I'm going to make friends. So I'll at least have somebody to talk to during the day when everybody's working. And so I called Kevin. I had 3 places. And I said, I'm coming up this weekend. And me and Carol, and we're going to go you call and make reservations, and we'll go look at these places. So we went to the first place. It wasn't built yet, but it looked like it was going to be a nice place, so I gave them a deposit. And then the next day I came here, and I just fell in love with this place because everybody was so nice. All the people that lived here were nice. And so it was a no-brainer. And Kevin lives around the corner, and the dialysis is around the corner.
And what do you miss most about Torrington?
The family. My in-laws are back there. But Stella calls me every night, so I still seek help, and I know what's happening back there. So.
What do you think the hardest thing about growing old is?
You can't do nothing.
What's the best thing?
You've done everything. There's nothing I want to do that I didn't do already. I'm lucky in that.
If you live another 20 years, what will you do?
I probably barf a lot. I don't want to live another 20 years. Thank you very much.
What's the most cherished family tradition?
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's always a good one.
That was my mother's favorite holiday. And I think it was because my mother never had anything like I never had anything when we were little. And we try to make up for all, and Kevin Jr. doesn't understand this. We try to make up for the loss that we had by giving it to our kids now. And my mother worked very hard to keep me and my brother. And she, then when we came up here, she brought me up here, I had never seen a Christmas tree. I never had a Christmas. The church used to bring us over this little stocking that you buy nowadays for your doggy or your kitty cat, and with all the little things and bones and stuff. But we had, and the church would bring over one of those for each of my brother and me, and it would have an orange, an apple, tangerine, some nuts, and some hard candies, and a little tiny doll. for me and a little truck for my brother. And that was our Christmas. And we didn't know any different. It didn't matter to us because nobody else had it either. Because they were all poor. There was coal country.
What have you thrown away in your life that you just wish you didn't throw that away?
I don't throw anything.
I know.
I don't throw anything away.
Well, what junk have you held on to and why? Alright, so what junk or what item have you held on to and why all these years?
Well, the other day when I took out my Christmas stuff, how it got up here, I have no idea where it was, and my son put it in the thing. You must have found it somewhere, maybe in my cedar chest. But there's a little pillow that way back in the 50s, an old boyfriend went in the Marines, and he sent me this pillow to his sweetheart.
Oh.
And I, to this day, don't know who that guy is. And I'm looking at it, what the hell am I going to do with this stupid pillow? I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it was all that time. And it was addressed to me. It's still in the envelope. I never used it. I never took it out of the envelope. I mean, I took it out and looked at it and put it back, you know. It must have had a letter in it, but I didn't. It's not in there. And so that's something I hung on. I don't need it. So I still didn't throw it away.
It's still in here somewhere.
It's in the Christmas box.
What advice did your granny or your parents give you that you remember best?
My grandmother. I used to come home crying because people used to make fun of me. They would call me cripple or hop along or names they used to call me. And I was tough. I would let it go off. But this one day it just bothered me. And I came home and I was crying. And she said, "Why are you crying?" And I said, they're all laughing at me, Mama. They're making fun of me, calling me names. And she said, "I'm going to tell you this right now, young lady. There is nobody in this world better than you. And you are never any better than anybody else. Just remember that. God gave us all, we all were born the same way. And we're all the same. It's what you make in life, it's what you get in life. And you can be better than them by ignoring them. But if it bothers you when he makes fun of you, the next time he does it, you make a fist. And you hit him as hard as you can in his stomach." And I said, no, I'll get in trouble. And she said, "You won't get in trouble. Believe me, I will take care of it." So the next day I went to school. And the same kid came over and started calling me names again. Then he ran away because he knew I couldn't catch him because I couldn't run. So I said, "Sooner or later, you're going to be standing still, and then I got you." So I think it was maybe the next day we were playing basketball, and he did it again. And I just reared back with my fist, and I hit him as hard as I could. And and he cried, and he told the teacher, "She hit me." And the teacher said, "Well, now maybe you'll leave her alone." So he got detention, and I got nothing.
Perfect. What do you think of Facebook?
I think it's awful sometimes. I like it because I see some good stuff on there, and I see what my kids are doing, and they don't have to call me. I can see them, and I know they're okay and all that. My grandkids I'm talking about, and my son. And I just scroll really fast. I don't read all of this stuff. I don't like politics. I don't like to talk politics because politics and religion is a personal thing, and I don't think that people should argue over them because it's personal. And so I won't talk. I have an opinion, but I won't get in on a thing because it's nobody's business how I think. And I do it for me. I mean, I never talked, even with Ron, we never talked politics, ever. We probably canceled out each other's vote. I don't know, but we voted. But it's something that is I think it should be a personal thing, and I don't think anybody should get angry over and lose friends, because some people can lose their friends because they're arguing about a point that nobody really gives about, you know? So that person that they're arguing about isn't worth that, losing that friend. So I would rather just not talk politics or religion, because those are two personal things that everybody should have on their own.
You realize how many people know you on Facebook now?
No, I don't.
There's thousands. We had somebody stop at the hospital that...
I know, and somebody down at the mall there, that lady in the thing.
That's because you're a magnet.
Yeah.
What? Explain the magnet.
I've always been, I don't know, I got a face that looks like she's a good listener. And everybody likes to tell me their troubles. So all through my life, my kids used to get so mad because everybody talked to me. When I go to the store, I go to the grocery store, I go wherever. And people would come up and talk to me, and they would get embarrassed because they would just talk. Ma, who was that? I don't know who it was. They just wanted to talk, so I listened. And so my husband called me the magnet, because no matter where I go, somebody comes to talk to me. And when I used to have Ronnie's kids from New Jersey at my house, they said, "Sister, you know everybody." I said, "No, honey, I don't know all those people. Honest, I don't. They just tell me stuff, you know." And then one time I stayed there for a week and took them to school when their mother and father went away for a week. And everywhere we went, people came to talk to me. And a man that came up and said, "Sister, you're right. You don't know all those people." I said, "No, honey, I told you that. I don't know them." So one time, we were in San Francisco, and we were waiting for our friends to come back. They went to the prison there to see the Alcatraz, and we had seen it already. So we told them we'd meet them in the lobby when they came back. So we're sitting in the lobby, and this little guy comes in, carrying a little paper satchel that you carry groceries in, with the little handles. And he's coming straight at us. And Ron said, "Magnet, magnet." And I said, "No, Ronnie, he's just going to sit down." He said, "Magnet, magnet." So I'm waiting. He does. He sits right across from us. He sits down and he said, "Are you people from here?" We said, "No, we're from Connecticut." "Oh, I'm from England," he said. He said, years ago I saw a movie, and it was made in one of these fancy hotels in this town, and I want to find that hotel because I love that movie. And I think this is the hotel. And I said, "Well, I don't know, but the concierge over there, he's a wealth of information. And he has a little museum in the back room there. And so maybe he would know. Go ask him." "Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm not staying here. He'll kick me out." I said, "Tell him you're our friend, and he'll let you go." So he said, "Okay." And he gets up and he leaves his little bag sitting there. And he goes over to talk to the concierge. And Ron looks at me and said, "Sure, Joe, he's going to go out the door and he's going to blow us all up." I said, "I don't think so, Ron. He's a nice little guy from England. Leave him alone, you know." But anyways, that was the end of that story. He came back and got his satchel.
I think that magnet rubbed off on me a little.
Yeah, it did.
My kids hate it. Even the club members, oh great, he's going to talk to everybody. If you had the power to solve one and only one problem in the whole world, what would it be and why?
It would be to please turn everybody around so everybody would care. Nobody cares anymore. Nobody has any morals anymore. Everybody is into their cell phones.
I'll try that again. So if you had the power to solve one and only one problem in the world, what would it be and why?
What did I say?
Start from scratch.
I would think everybody would be caring. I think we need to get back to the basics of life and morals. Teach our children morals. Teach them respect. They don't have respect for each other. They don't know what respect is. They're into the internet and the cell phones. Those are the worst things that ever happened to us, was those cell phones. I think they should not be able to use them at dinner time. When you sit and have dinner, that's when me and my kids talked. At dinner time, we talked about our day, how we went, what happened in school, what happened at work with Dad, and we got to know each other. And they don't do that. They don't sit down and eat no more. They don't have no family time.
So if you could write a message to each of your kids and grandkids and put it in a time capsule for them to read 20 years from now, what would it consist of?
It would just be telling them to know their morals, their love, their caring, their take care of their parents, just like the Chinese do. The Chinese people are the best people to take care of their family and their parents. But nobody could do better than you and your brother.
Oh, thank you, Mama. So if you're looking back on your life, what advice would your adult self give your younger self?
I just lived by my grandmother's rules from the time she told me when I was a little girl. And that was to be myself, be true. And I have to be, the way you treat yourself is how you're going to treat other people. And if you treat yourself bad, then you're not going to be a very good person. So you have to be to thyself, be true, is what she used to tell me. And I've lived by that, and I would do it again. There's nothing, I remember when I started dating, and I was dating quite a few guys. And Nana one day said, "Mary Jo, you're going out with too many guys." And I said, "Mother, I'm not doing anything wrong with these guys. They know it, I know it, and God knows it. I don't care what next door thinks about me, because I know I have not done anything bad. And so I'm not worried about the next guy. I don't care what Joe Smo says or whatever. I am true to myself." And I said, "I know what I'm doing. God knows I'm not doing nothing wrong. You should know I'm not doing nothing wrong. And the guy I'm with knows I'm not doing nothing wrong. So I'm not worried about what next door neighbor said."
Now, if you can meet and have dinner with anybody in the world, who would it be and what would you talk about?
I would have my two boys.
And what would you talk about?
I would talk about their family.
And what's your idea of a perfect day?
Getting up, saying my prayers, and thank you, God, for being another day. And talking with my kids.
Now, originally, when I asked you to do this interview, you said, "Oh no, nobody's really going to want to hear that. That's kind of silly," and I forced you to do it. Are you happy you did your life interview?
I am. Yeah.
Good. Well, we're going to be playing this probably till the dawn of time ends. So that's the story and Mom's biography of Mary Jo Corey, and I hope you love her as much as we do. Bye, Mama.
Bye.
Love you.